involved, get informed. This is the Shaggy Jenkins Show on the Pacifica Radio Network.
88.5 FM, the voice of Maui. It's the Shaggy Jenkins Show on the Pacifica Radio Network. Welcome back to another action-filled, adventurous day as we try to plow through a lot of headlines. If you want to know anything about the show, well, it's easy. Go to my website. It's shaggyjenkins.com. Wherever fine social media is served, you can follow me at Shaggy Live. And of course, why not? I'll just introduce myself. I am critical thinker, problem solver, guy that reads a lot of newspapers from a lot of foreign lands. My name, Shaggy Jenkins. Welcome to the program. Before we dive through things like my new nickname for the Russian conspiracy, because damn it, I'm tired of hearing the word gate. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk about reality winner. That's a person, not a thing. And of course, the FISA meeting that's happening today, and a couple of more stories that, God, have popped up. It has been an adventurous 24 hours in the news cycle. Before we get to all of that, this week I have been touching on virtues of America that have gone away and kind of need to come back. And we've covered patience. We've covered, we've covered a lot. But one of the virtues that I'd like to talk to you today, because, we went through the polarization of society. Discussed that. We've discussed how everybody is just instant gratification now. This should be, kind of a no-brainer, but one of the biggest virtues in America that has seemingly disappeared forever is compassion. We all need to kind of go back and open up the textbooks of the human experience and relearn a little bit of compassion for our fellow man. Now, I say this in the wake of course, an administration that does seem to, at least financially, as far as, on paper, budget in ways that are terrible for the middle class and for the poor and marginalized, what we call borderline financial people in the United States. It is very, very hard to look at modern policy and actually see an ounce of compassion. And that's why it's but really important that we rediscover compassion for our fellow man and just our daily lives. You see, the moment that you lose understanding of the old adage, what it's like to walk a mile in someone else's shoes, you start to detach yourself from decisions that benefit you and that other party mutually. Now, I know that a lot of you in the modern age have started to equate your life to a zero-sum game. There is only so much excitement, there is only so much money, there is only so much living that people can do, and if you're not out there taking your share of it, then somebody else will. It's a zero-sum game. That's not the reality of our lives. It is okay for people to live at different paces, to have different advantages, as long as, no matter who they are, no matter what advantages or disadvantages they have in life, they always have some sort of empathy or compassion towards their fellow man. Now, in times of national disaster, we have seen the greatness of what American compassion is capable of. Look no further than the whole kickoff of this millennium. In the aftermath of 9/11, the amount of compassion that poured out of the United States towards their fellow man and woman was amazing. And then in the years since then, we have turned introverted, self-centered, narcissistic, and a whole lot of isms and schisms that aren't good for us as a society as a whole. So Today's lesson or today's virtue that you should really reconsider bringing back into your everyday existence is compassion. And it's not that hard. And even if it is for you personally hard, well, literally sometimes it helps to put yourself in other people's shoes. Step outside of your life and experience what it must be like for the other side, and God, at the end of the day, I hate to say it, you will be a better person for it. Embrace compassion, America, because in the days and months and years to come ahead, well, somebody's going to have to show it for us, aren't they? Let's jump into some of our stories of the day because, holy cow, do we have a lot. And I kind of want to start off with a big meeting that's happening in Washington. Now, today, of course, everybody is really kind of skipping over the whole Washington thing. This is so funny. They're trying to skip over business as usual in Washington, and their countdown to Comey. Yeah, everybody is so expecting tomorrow's testimony that begins at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time with James Comey, former FBI director. Everybody is looking so forward to that, they are skipping over a major hearing that is happening in D.C. today. And I am talking about the FISA meeting. Now, you've probably heard that word before, and if you're in certain areas of the country, you probably have attached some sort of nefarious, evil kind of connotation to that acronym, FISA, FISA. It's the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, okay? Now, way back in a more innocent time in our country, 1978, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act was passed. And it was passed in the spirit of setting up intelligence gathering for foreign targets that might have had interest in stuff happening on American soil. Now, it's never had an update. It only had kind of a year-to-year scratch outline of what it can and can't do. And some of these things expire and some don't. And one of the things that we're talking about today in Washington, D.C., as far as FISA is concerned, is something called Section 702. I know, on this show, every time I mention the word section with some numbers behind it, you get, whoa, God, no, this is a bad story. But let me go ahead and assure you that Section 702 of FISA, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, is actually something that we need to look at and analyze really carefully because it's taken kind of a public relations nightmare hit over the last little bit. No thanks to our president. You remember not too long ago when Donald Trump was trying to distract people from another story of Russian allegations and collusions coming up? So he said over a weekend on his Twitter account, while he was at his Mar-a-Lago resort, that Obama, and I don't know how this was even possible in a dystopian novel, but President Obama had issued a kind of ultimatum of we need to wiretap Trump and Trump's tower. The MI5 and the UK intelligence all got involved in it, and it was somehow wrapped up under the name of or alluded to some sort of connection to FISA. Okay. Real quick, let me unravel the reality of what happened in the aftermath of all of that crazy shakeup that Trump created from his allegations of a former president wiretapping him. He clouded the public view of what Section 702 and FISA actually does. You see, here's the deal. When it comes to being a useful tool, Section 702 of FISA has actually been quite effective at gathering intelligence on foreign operatives that might have some sort of nefarious interest within the United States. It has gone a long way to detracting from people that would want to come here and threaten our safety and security. Now, problem is, we can only get an inkling, a hint of what those things are because the highly classified nature of them and the importance to national security that they represent. But that alone should tell you that Section 702 has actually been doing good work over the years, right? Sadly, thanks to the president and his wiretapping allegations, a lot of the public has started to misconstrue and, confusicate themselves over what FISA and Section 702 are actually allowed to do as far as United States citizens. So, I want to clear up two big misconceptions for you, if you have them, about Section 702 of FISA. Now, the first misconception that you probably need to know is that unlike what Donald Trump was claiming in all his wiretapping allegations and stuff, is that FISA does not, under Section 702, it does not have the authority to look at American citizens. That is a big misconception. The authority, and this is quoting from a nice piece today I read, the authority expressly forbids intentional targeting of a United States person for surveillance. Okay, and this also follows under the Electronic Surveillance of Americans Act, or, okay. But anyway, the first big misconception that you have to clear up about Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act is that it does not allow, nor does it permit, even through foreign entities and backdoor nudge, wink kind of deals, it does not permit spying on American citizens. The last time that I mentioned the word section that did apply to American citizens, that was under the old Patriot Act, and that was Section 215, a very, very bad section. And people, for some strange reason, just because they both have the word section in them, confusicate as to what they do with each other. Well, 702 is not like the nefarious 215, and that's the one that everybody associates it with. 702 is specific to foreign targets and foreign intelligence sources. So first and foremost, what Donald Trump said about Barack Obama having him wiretapped in Trump Towers and all of that is an outright lie and a total misrepresentation of what the FISA Section 702 does. Now, the second big thing that you got to clear up when you talk about this is that it also, even though there has been talk, thanks to the Russian and Trump allegation thing, there's been talk about how there's this thing called incidental collection of information. That is when an intelligence agency is looking at a target, maybe say in Qatar, and they pick up on a little bit of conversation from a guy in Kentucky. Now, even though the guy from Kentucky isn't a part of their scope of investigation, if he communicates with their Qatar person of interest, his information would get collected right along with that. Now, even if it was just a harmful thing, like maybe the guy in Qatar just wants to order some cornholing stuff. Yes, cornholing is a thing. I'm not making that word up, and if you've never played it before, you should try. It's kind of fun. But, and I don't say that as a former college student, I say that as a middle-aged man that came from the South. But let's just back to the point here. If the communication between a foreign subject and an American person, citizen, is completely innocent, in other words, that person also isn't the subject of an investigation, then their information is expunged to the four winds. And here's something else. You see, Donald Trump said, when Comey came out and talked about incidental collection of intelligence and stuff like that, and he said, that makes me feel a little bit vindicated. Oh, yeah, I knew that they were taking my information. I knew it. Well, here's the thing. Section 702 has been highly, highly scrutinized by a lot of people in the intelligence community, and big, big strides have happened as far as safeguarding and securing Americans and their privacy from being swept up in a foreign intelligence investigation. So today, the hearings that we're having in D.C. are all talking about Section 702, and a lot of people are like, oh, God, they're iffy. They don't know if they want to have it or not. Let me tell you, as far as a beneficial act, FISA and 702 have effectively helped safeguard America. As far as being represented in the public eye, FISA and Section 702 have been sold to you as something terrible and something that could apply to you, and neither one of those things are true. But that's what they're going to have to debate today, because everybody has gotten confused and kind of, thanks to Donald Trump, once again, misconstrued along the lines of what intelligence gathering is like and who can do what to who. It's going to be an uphill push for the old 702 today. But we really need to consider, A, its benefit, B, the fact that it is constantly being refined so that it becomes a better and better person, and C, at the end of the day, we also need to consider whether or not our president has just messed something up with his Twitter account again, and the facts point to something completely different. Before we jump to a break real quick, I need to jump to another story, because as long as we're talking about FISA and intelligence, I have to talk about a person named Reality Winner. Okay, that's not a competition, and it took me the longest time reading this story to figure out that Reality Winner is actually a person. Let's see, she's 25 years old, former Air Force linguist, Reality Lee Winner. Reality Winner is a white woman, so officially, crackers, you are not allowed to make fun of cultures' names anymore. Other culture names, okay? None. Reality Winner, though, is kind of a, how do I say this? It's kind of an interesting story. The reason why is because it brings to light some security vulnerabilities that we might have within the NSA. Now, real quick, why is Reality Winner in the news? Well, if you read, now there's a national security news outlet, believe it or not, it's a paper called The Intercept. They run stories about national security and things like that. On Monday, they dropped a huge bombshell talking about alleged ties between Russia and Trump. Where did they get that information? It was leaked from an NSA contractor. That contractor's name was Reality Winner. Okay, so there's the story in a nutshell. This is the first criminal leak case of the Trump era, and we know how much Trump has wanted to really draw and quarter the first leaker that he gets. Oh, he looks so much forward to the blood spewing and stuff like that. Really been looking for a leaker, but here's the problem. Reality Winner is actually a part of a community of independent contractors that work within the security and intelligence communities within the United States. Now, how big of a number is that? Wow, it's in the millions. You see, here's the thing. When we talk about leaks and stuff and we talk about security, everybody always says, well, this person that and this person this. And it was a personal thing from one individual, and there's no chance with all the safeguards in place that it could happen again. But remember, this was an independent contractor, former Air Force linguist, got her hands on some documents, photocopied them, sent them off to a paper. The trial could be devastating for Miss Winner, because it is the first leaker caught during the Trump administration. And we all know how happy they are to, quote, burn the bastards down. But this is where this story gets kind of crazy. There's millions, and if I'm not mistaken, I think the number is, let me dig it up here, is it 1.2 3 million private contractors that work within our intelligence community. Now, these private contractors are, they sign forms that bond them, of course, non-disclosed, non-compete forms. For God's sakes, the paperwork that you sign within the intelligence community is very similar to the paperwork we sign within the media community. So I have some sort of endemic understanding of this thing. It's basically a contract that says you talk, you go to jail. You take any of the stuff that you learn here to somebody else and use that knowledge, you'll go to jail. Non-compete, non-disclose. Government contractors, though, in the massive amounts that they exist, aren't really, at least according to the NSA, aren't really that big of a threat. But think about what I said. People not involved in the intelligence community, 1.3 million of them, are walking around right now with top secret clearances. And these independent contractors change all the time. So when we talk about, intelligence gathering and stuff like that, and the importance of keeping our national secret secret, we have to face fact. Not too long ago, there was a guy by the name of Snowden. Yay, everybody loves Edward Snowden. He's America's favorite iPad on a stick with wheels. Edward Snowden, an NSA contractor, gave us our big glimpse into the nefarious Section 215. Once again, Section 215 is not Section 202 of the FISA. So please don't confuse the two. But Edward Snowden gave us a huge document dump that pointed to some nefarious activities within the intelligence community. And ever since that happened many years ago, the intelligence community has never been able to reclaim any sort of credibility as far as securing their operational files and securing their secret. Now, with this latest blow from a 25-year-old independent contractor coming to the NSA and the intelligence community, how much do you think the American public will actually trust them to keep secrets safe? Now, besides being a huge political discussion about how intelligence works, how people are vetted to work within the intelligence community, like contractors and stuff like that, not only are those debates coming up, but it's kind of bringing back the Snowden debate from before. Look, how far can we go as far as attaining information? Who can we tap? When can we tap? And at what sources can we use to tap them? All of this stuff is coming back up just because of this latest little leak case. Now, the things that were leaked are kind of interesting. Let me pull these up here because Miss Winter, and this is the thing, there was a May 5th report. She's the one that took the report and sent it to the Intercept. But this report details information of hacking activity by the GRU. The GRU is a branch of Russian military intelligence. Now, this report, the May 5th report, describes hacks that had happened back in August against a company that sells software related to voter registration and another company a few days before the election. 122 local election officials were hacked, all a part of this GRU little operation. And Miss Winter took the May 5th report and sent it out to the Intercept. Now, I know what you're thinking. Oh my God, Shaggy, back up there. You just said Russian military intelligence tried to hack voting machines and 122 local election officials. Yes, I did. That was a report that she leaked. And remember, the Trump administration's argument has been for the longest time that there's no evidence of all of this stuff happening. There's nothing. Putin came on the other day with Megyn Kelly and said, show me this Russian intelligence ties to the United States election. I do not see nothing. Well, Miss Winter's file leaked shows us something. And it's a bad something. But the real bad thing at the end of the day is that once again, we have to worry about when it comes to our secrets with the NSA and our intelligence community, can they keep our secrets straight? Can they keep them safe? Because they can't even keep their own stuff safe lately. Now, more on this story as it develops, but coming up, we got to talk about a different kind of conspiracy name. Yeah. We'll get rid of the gate coming up. Oh, and we got to talk about Qatar, Russian hackers, and more. It's the Shaggy Jenkins Show.
Heads up, home mechanics. The suspension of the county's youth.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that was a lot of story to digest there real quick, and my phone is blowing up. Okay, let's see what's going on. James Comey written testimony as a pulpy literary treat. Yeah, I read the thing. Sonia, oh, no. Tech the port. Wow, okay. A lot of stuff with this Comey thing. Oh, God, seriously? Now you give me the low battery? All right. Here's the thing that you kind of realize with the Comey testimony tomorrow. Everybody is so hot for this guy to testify that they're ignoring the fact that we have a lot of things that we have to go through with him, including what about all that timing of the Clinton investigation release around July and the October surprise that he pulled? Why did those things happen? It's not just all hunky-dory. Comey's here to save the day. And remember, this is an ongoing investigation. So no matter how salacious, no matter how juicy the details from Comey might be, they could just be the tip of the iceberg. All right, let's get back into here.
Find out how you can make more at teach.org. Make more. Teach. Brought to you by Teach and the Ad Council.
This is the Shaggy Jenkins Show on the Pacifica Radio Network.
88.5 FM, the voice of Maui. It's the Shaggy Jenkins Show on the Pacifica Radio Network. Welcome back to it. Hey, if you want to check out some of the past archives of the show, well, feel free to do that. Go to my website, shaggyjenkins.com, okay? And if you're on social media and want to follow all the shenanigans, just look me up, okay? I think I'm even on MySpace, at Shaggy Live. Coming up on tomorrow's program, before we get back into our news stories of the day, we'll have Dan O'Brien analyzing the big stories of the week, including a moment-by-moment, hopefully moment-by-moment, because we're both so busy these days, dissection of the James Comey testimony. Now, of course, you know that this show is based from the lovely Akaku Maui Community Media Center on the Isle of Maui in the 50th state, which, for time zone differences, means that we have to wake up at 3 a.m. to watch James Comey testify. I'm yawning already thinking about it. But here's some fun facts for you. If you're listening to the program and kind of want to go ahead and see what tomorrow's testimony will be like, James Comey has released his written statement to the Judiciary Committee already, and you can read through some of the very salacious details. Like Comey said he was personally briefing Trump on the supposed Russian dossier. Now, this was the unverified material that was supposed to be reported in the media. Yeah, okay. There's also, he told Trump that he was personally not under a counterintelligence investigation. That is kind of dangerous behavior. He decided to keep immediate notes of his conversations with Trump when Trump started making him feel uncomfortable back in January. And this, of course, all led up to the infamous February 14th meeting. I don't want to give away too many details of this because, spoiler alert. But if you want to read James Comey's written statement ahead of his testimony tomorrow, and there's some people on the Republican aisle, some representatives coming out saying, we don't want to react to this yet. We want to question the man before we react to this yet. But you can bet your ass that the Democrats have already jumped all over these details. Go read it for yourself before some news commentator or opinionator gets a hold of it and tells you what to think of it. Because it's actually a really good read. I mean, you might want to pull up one of those seasonal coffees and reminisce under your blanket as you read it. It's some good stuff. All right, let's get back into some of the news of the day. Now, America is not the only country lately that has been having trouble with Russia and hacking. And I know what you're thinking. Oh, okay, Shaggy, you're going to talk about this whole UK election that's getting ready to happen very soon, tomorrow, in fact. Actually, in the UK, with the time zone difference, people actually should be waking up by the time the late show plays, the late version of this show, and voting. It's a runoff election, and it was one called by the Prime Minister, Theresa May. However, the dark horse, Jeremy Corbyn, although he doesn't have what many UK political analysts are calling a snowball's chance in hell of winning, the runoff in the UK election is looking really interesting. And people have said and started to kind of wonder, where is Putin and Russia in this whole election that the UK is having? We haven't seen any leaks. We haven't seen any email dumps. Nobody has come out and said, oh, I saw Jeremy Corbyn making out with a strange woman, because then they would be talking about his actual campaigning. I mean, seriously, Google Jeremy Corbyn kissing. He made out with like half of the UK. I cannot believe this guy's not going to win. I mean, I can't believe he's not going to win and that he doesn't have mono. But Russia has been incredibly quiet when it comes to the machinations of the UK election. And people have said, oh, well, maybe that's because there wasn't no Russian hacks after all. Well, I told you yesterday, it's because Russia sees the UK as a sister colony or colonial empowerment of the United States. So they don't really care about the UK. But other elections have seen Russia involved. Remember Marie Le Pen running against Macron, who is now currently France's leader? Macron was the subject of a big email hack and leak ahead of the election. Now, rightfully so, French media and French citizens came forward and said, this is a distraction and we're not going to go that way, and did not elect Marie Le Pen. Now, there were also elections in, I believe, Spain, Germany, and Denmark that showed some sort of signs of Russia propagandizing or hacking and meddling. But not so much with the UK. So, what country could I possibly be talking about? It is the much beleaguered country of Qatar, as the crackers in American media call it. Qatar. Here's the thing. On the international scene, has been in a little bit of a wild, I guess, 72-hour news cycle. Here's what's happened so far. On Tuesday, Jordan announced that it would downgrade its diplomatic ties to Qatar. That's after Monday, when Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Egypt, Yemen, and even the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, all cut off ties to Qatar. Now, when I say they cut off ties, I mean they cut off everything. Air traffic, shut down. Shipping, docks, gone. Food shipments into Qatar, gone. Now, the reason why all these countries kind of said, finally, we are cutting off Qatar like it is Cinderella after midnight, the reason that we're doing that is because they have, for the longest time, been a haven of terrorist supporters, funders, and even the terrorists themselves. So with all of this stuff happening in Qatar, they have been, well, not as bad as Venezuela. but they've been making massive runs on the grocery stores, stockpiling and things like that. Now, so far, economically, they're looking like they're going to weather the storm okay. Not as bad as Venezuela with no food and then, people getting shot for trying to go get food. Humans, they make no sense to me some days. But even though that situation isn't so bleak, there has been, and I'm not making this up, some sort of allegation floated in the international community that could all of this be the result of Russian hacking? I know what you're thinking. Wait a minute, Shaggy. You're telling me that a bunch of countries break off relationship with a neighbor country because they think that it's a terrorist haven, and this could be hacking? Look, I know what you're thinking. But there has been a little suspicion about some activity that's come out of Qatar that maybe, just maybe, wasn't engineered by Qatari. Maybe, just maybe, it was Russian. Either operating through the infrastructure of Qatar or operating within Qatar itself. Now, of course, Russian government has stepped up and said that there's zero evidence. Kremlin is very, very staunch. We have not hacked. We do not hack. We have never hacked. Ha ha ha. No, that's their stance. But here's the thing. All of these machinations that happen between governments are now all starting to be either overshadowed or thrown under the umbrella of some sort of Russian intelligence act. Now, there is other media consequences for this, and I know that there's not a lot of fans of Al Jazeera in the United States. Remember how Al Gore was going to bring Al Jazeera English? It lasted for a while, then couldn't pay its bill, then get kicked off the cable system. Well, Al Jazeera functions out of Qatar. And along with, and I know this is going to sound messed up, along with cutting off food and everything like that, Al Jazeera's foreign branches in other countries are now having their license revoked, and the media organization is being told to get all your people on a plane and put them back in the country that we think they belong in, not now, but right now. So there is kind of a weird side effect of all of this kind of machinations that has been happening. But the reason that they've been happening has kind of been misconstrued in the international community when they talk about the incidents that happened, with Qatar possibly being a part of planting fake news stories through their state-run news agencies. Oh, and actively using, you remember that media outlet? Actively using Al Jazeera as a propaganda machine. They're saying that all of this stuff could, does any of this sound related to hacking at all? But there is the allegation, and there is the rumor out there, that everybody, all of these countries and all of the 72 hours of news of Qatar, seriously, there's been so many people that have heard about that country for the first time. Congratulations, there's a big world out there with a lot of countries. Maybe you should learn some, but on the other hand, this has been the most mention of this country since the last time we mentioned them, when they started actively killing thousands of people to make a soccer stadium. But is this a case of the country being bad, or operations that are allowed within the country being bad? Maybe even at the behest of their government? We don't know. But this sudden shutdown, this sudden revoking and throwing up walls around Qatar is going to, in the long run, have some very, very interesting results. Huge results. So, I'll keep following that story as it develops. I know not a lot of news agencies are jumping on this, but look, on the international scene, we're not the only country that worries about Russian hacking. Now, of course, European countries have always experienced some sort of manipulation in some sort of Russian guise in one form or another. They're used to it. But Russia has been amping up, especially in the electronic ages, their shock and awe methods of controlling geopolitical mechanisms. So it's just really, really kind of frustrating when you're following stories about, especially terrorism, something that we should all have panic buttons installed about, because only America do we worry about terrorism so minutely, so constantly. Oh, God, I just don't even want to get into it. But long story short, the longer this story develops, we'll either see Qatar being the country that actually allowed some of this Russian hacking to find a home inside of their national borders, that they too engage themselves in Russian-like actions with manipulating their state news agencies with fake news in order to push political agendas forward. Or B, we will find once again another country that has somehow been compromised by the, God, I want to say ravaging reach of Russia, but that almost sounds seductive. Wow. How about the rampant expansionism of the Russian political machine? There you go. But Qatar, victim or accomplice, we don't know yet. We will find out soon. And remember, this is one of those countries that has been, talked about in the United States as being a source of terrorism and all of that. So, there you go. They could also be part of our cyber terrorism problem as well. All right, last story before we get out of here today, because this one is, how do I say this? This one to me is groundbreaking. Because every single time a controversy has happened since the 1970s, we always attach the word gate to it. And I know that that's all because the biggest political scandal that has ever occurred in United States history was the one, the only, ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Tricky Dick himself, Watergate, yay! Turns out that might not be true. You see, according to James Clapper, you know him, right? Clap on, clap off. No, not that one. He was a former intelligence member. James Clapper has actually said that, look, when you're talking about the scale, when you're talking about the allegations, the implications, and the consequences going down the road of what the United States is enduring now under Donald Trump versus the Watergate scandal under Nixon. According to James Clapper, and he's really starting not to be the only guy on this side of the field saying this, the allegations of collusion between Trump and Moscow have already eclipsed Watergate. Let me back that up real quick so you understand exactly what I am saying. Ladies and gentlemen, according to people in the know and people that have had experience with such things, the controversy and investigation that we are undergoing now eclipses the largest investigation that has ever happened in American history as pertaining to the United States White House. We have crossed the Watergate line. Now, there's a lot of reasons that you can say that. One, and the main reason that you can say that, has to do with the fact of what the charges actually are. The allegations out there is that Russia, through its intelligence community, manipulated the United States election process. whether or not that manipulation included collusion with Trump's campaign is yet unknown. However, the allegations are foreign government tampered with our election and may have colluded with the people in the White House to make sure that that all happened. That is far beyond what Nixon did. Remember, Watergate, at the end of the day, was Tricky Dick trying to win a re-election off of massive number. Now, he won the election anyway, and would have won the election anyway had he done nothing at all than just campaign as Nixon as usual. But that wasn't good enough for him, so he wanted to get some cleaners together. He wanted some guys on the inside, and he wanted to know everything he could about the DNC and their campaign plans so that he could win in an overwhelming margin during his re-election bid. That was what Watergate was about at the small of it. That is, at the end of the day, one guy domestically, with no foreign ties, greedily acting in his own self-interest for a very narcissistic and selfish goal. The Russian-Trump collusion allegations far eclipse that. We have a foreign government that may have engaged in a coordinated either military or intelligence campaign to change the outcome of a presidential election. We also have certain allegations that are very hard to shake for a White House that keeps doing stupid things, allegations of collusion between the current administration and this sophisticated electioneering operation set up in Russia. Now, whether that was set up from Russia or, as Putin said, politically minded hackers, politically minded activists, I think he also called them. At the end of the day, the narrative that this story is going to get told from is going to have to start changing in scope, because we have, at this point, ladies and gentlemen, found the biggest investigation with the biggest implications in United States history. And I kind of wanted to give it a new name, because some people have been calling it Russiagate. Some people have been calling it Trumpgate. Well, we've passed the gate. Look, just think of ourselves as the fattest bull on the farm, and we looked right at that gate like, and charged through it into the open pastures. We're past the gate, people. So I wanted to come up with a new clever name for our conspiracy. So we know what the conspiracy entails. Foreign government, foreign intelligence operation, electioneering during the 2016 presidential campaign, possible collusion between the Trump campaign and Russian intelligence. Now remember, Trump really wants these Russian ties to go away, so here's a quick tip, Mr. President. Back in December and January, Barack Obama was getting a little fed up with what he thought the Russians were up to, so he expunged about 60-something of their ambassadors from our country, abandoning 2 properties that were owned by and operated by the Russian government. Now, these 2 properties were also notoriously known as being homes of spy rings, of being places where, during the Reagan era, they tried to wiretap the White House and all kinds of crazy shenanigans that those lovable Russians love to do. And Donald Trump, the deal maker that he is, trying to get under the umbrella of some sort of suspicion that he is really buddy-buddy with Putin, recently announced that he wishes to give back and open up these 2 properties that Barack Obama put sanctions against with no discernible thing for the United States. The great deal maker basically wants to give the Russians back their house, hand them the keys, and walk away from it. Not even so much as a slap on the wrist, don't screw with us in our intelligence community. So for a guy that's trying to shake allegations, he's really not doing that great of a job. Now, in Watergate, they did do kind of a sophisticated job, definitely a much more sophisticated job. Think about it. This administration is doing such a poor job of this conspiracy that John Oliver, comedian and HBO host, called this whole thing stupid Watergate, where it's just as damaging as Watergate. We now know it's worse. But everybody involved is an absolute moron. So, what kind of a name would fit this kind of thing? Because we are talking about Russia colluding with the Trump administration. Now, with Nixon and the Watergate saga, we named it Watergate because Watergate Hotel was where the files for the DNC were being held, right? But we can't call this the Trump Russia, where that's where I suspect all the intelligence about what really happened in our elections is being held. But what about that word collusion? And what about the fact that this was a backdoor attack from a Russian intelligence group? Wouldn't this make this kind of a backdoor collusion? And since it was perpetrated by Russia, I want to call this whole crazy thing Russia Lube or Russia Lude. Because we can't use Watergate anymore. This has surpassed it in scale, in involvement, in impact, in scope. Russia Lude should be the new name that we call this. It implies some very nasty things. It also implies a little backdoor shenanigans, which is what all this stuff is about. Allowing a foreign government through the back door of our intelligence and our election processes to get the better of us and put somebody in the White House. But we can't use Watergate anymore. And I mean, it goes even further than that. Nixon tried to derail and slow down his investigation. Trump outright fired an FBI director under false pretenses, then goes on television and stupidly admits the real pretenses that he fired him under. Trump truly has a problem with censoring himself. But because of all of these factors, because of all of the things that are still under the shadows, that are still alleged, that are still being drug up, it seems like every single week another person, another body is thrown onto the pyre of this burning conspiracy. And instead of the flames dwindling down and going to a low simmer that we can all kind of digest through, the flames are going higher and higher, and there is no end in sight. So for God's sakes, we got to kill the gate. The gate has got to go. The gate is dead. The Russia-Trump story now is the largest investigation of the White House in United States history. So congratulations for all you people that survived Watergate 1. Welcome to Watergate 2. Actually, no. Let's not ever call it Watergate again. It's far more damaging, not only on the domestic but in the international scene. It has far more ramifications going forward. We're talking everything from security to the sacred right of elections to verifying how the president makes it to office. This trial, this investigation, encompasses things that we have never, ever, ever had to question before. And yeah, why not? Name it Russian lewd. Because if that name takes off, damn it, I'm writing a book. But here's the thing. Nixon resigned, trying to save the country millions and millions of dollars of investigation. He did it for economic reasons. That was his resignation, right? Trump has spent well more than the Watergate investigation cost so far just on travel. Think about it, boys and girls. Russian lewd is here to stay. Till the next show.